Have you ever wondered what happens when a man unlocks the secret language of the unseen and walks into a world we can't follow? Imagine a quiet scholar, unassuming, who one evening slipped beyond the veil, conversed with beings not bound by our laws, and then vanished without a trace. His last words, a whisper of light, a promise of revelation. Today, we unravel the true story of the man who spoke to higher beings and was never seen again. A tale of curiosity, mystery, and the tipping point between known and unknowable. Our story begins with Dr. Elias Marlowe, a linguist and philosopher obsessed with ancient scripts and hidden languages. He poured years into translating archaic manuscripts from Babylon, Egypt, and Tibet, believing that the key to contact with higher realms lay not in ritual, but in words. Late nights in his study, cadenced by candlelight, he meticulously reconstructed glyphs and phonemes, convinced each symbol carried energy beyond human speech. Colleagues thought him eccentric, but none doubted his brilliance. One manuscript haunted him above all: the Sermon of the Silent, a scroll so ancient it defied origin. It described a moment fraught with danger and wonder, when a speaker utters a phrase that tears reality's membrane, revealing another realm. The scroll warned that only one frequency, one precise sequence of sound, would call them, and mispronouncing it could shatter your mind or worse. Late one autumn night, after decades of study, Elias believed he'd reconstructed that phrase. In a makeshift chamber deep in his lab, Elias arranged candles, crystals, aged wood, and his precious manuscript. He recorded himself uttering the phrase, analyzed its vibrational patterns, and practiced until his voice quivered on the cusp of comprehension. On the appointed evening, a date he calculated by aligning lunar cycles and astrological charts, he began chanting. The air thickened, the candles flickered in impossible synchronicity. Floorboards vibrated, a hush fell, so deep it swallowed his breath. Then, in the silence that followed, there came a reply, not in English, not in any known language, but a harmonic resonance. A voice that reverberated past words. Eyewitnesses spoke of seeing candles ignite themselves and shadows detach from walls. Elias's lips moved without breath, as if channeling speech through a conduit, and his eyes glowed with ethereal luminescence. Then he turned, walked toward a shifting passage of light that appeared in midair, and stepped into it. The chamber dimmed except for a solitary candle. The light and the man were gone. Search teams found no body, no portal, no sign of disturbance, only melted wax, a single slip of paper with indecipherable symbols, and that lingering resonance carried on the air, like a chord that refused to fade. Was he gone, transformed, consumed? That question hangs in the silence of his empty lab. In the weeks that followed, rumors spread. Some whispered that he'd become one with the luminal beings, entities of pure consciousness who exist between reality's folds. Others believed he had died, his mind destroyed by cosmic voices. A few claimed to have intercepted signals on radio waves, vibrations repeating that same harmonic resonance. Conspiracy theorists argued governments suppressed evidence. Skeptics said it was suicide cloaked in delusion. His family, devastated, could only cling to scraps. A final letter hinting that he heard the promise of worlds we're not meant to see, and a worn notebook scribbled with mathematical equations and sonic diagrams. But the story doesn't end with disappearance. Years later, people recite uncanny verses, they say, came to them in dreams, phrases that match Elias's manuscript. A musician claimed to have composed a symphony guided by the resonance. A blind poet wrote lines that evoke unearthly sights. They didn't know Elias, but they were touched by something beyond human origin. Was his voice still echoing through others? Was he sending messages back? Some scientists studied the phenomenon, suggesting that rare resonances can imprint themselves on the collective unconscious, like ghost infrasound that lodges in our psyche. Others believe in a quantum echo. Once a phrase pierces through, it leaves a trace that bleeds into random minds. Skeptical, yet intrigued, parapsychologists created devices to detect these echoes. They recorded patterns reminiscent of Elias's final chant, but denied the source, lost in static, blurred by international interference, but always present. Then there are the dreamers. Thousands reported identical dreams. A candlelit room, a man chanting in a language that transmutes into color, a passage of shimmering light. Some woke sobbing, some inspired to creative genius, others forever changed. Elias became myth, a figure crossing over from mortal to eternal, a pivot between known and unknown. What does this tale reveal about us? It asks whether language is just communication or a key, fragments of cosmic code we lost when we forgot to listen. It asks whether curiosity is blessing or curse, and whether some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. Are there realms beyond sense? And if we find the words, must we pay a price? As seekers, we ask, does the boundary between science, mysticism, and madness move with intention or belong only in stories? Did Elias choose this fate, or was he chosen? Does speaking with higher beings require sacrifice, or is it the ultimate expression of human potential? Tonight, when the world is still, listen for a whisper in the static, a hum beneath the hum you know. Because sometimes what vanishes doesn't leave, it becomes a story, a resonance, an invitation. Perhaps, Doctor, Elias Marlowe awaits not in flesh, but in frequencies, waiting for someone else to speak the phrase, to cross the threshold, to finish the conversation. The air had barely settled when the world started to shift. Scientists who visited Marlowe's lab reported inexplicable temperature drops and localized electromagnetic disturbances. A geomagnetic anomaly map of the area shows a faint hotspot centered on his study. Could energy have imprinted itself on that space? Journalists covering his disappearance scoured his contacts. They discovered references to a clandestine brotherhood, the keepers of the luminous tongue, who preserved knowledge of cosmic frequencies. They called themselves holders of the threshold, and Marlowe attended secret meetings in candlelit catacombs beneath ancient cities. He wasn't a lone pioneer. He was networked into hidden currents. Members of the group claimed Marlowe was nearing the culmination of a decades-old prophecy, a mortal crossing into the liminal realm of higher beings. These beings, they said, are guardians of universal whispers and guides to expanded consciousness. The keepers spoke in hushed tones of elixirs, sound rituals, glyphic codices, all intended to align a human with frequencies beyond the brain's capacity. Marlowe's manuscript contained a resonant codex, layers of linguistic geometry, and sacred consonants designed to blur the barrier between worlds. But which world did Elias walk into when he spoke? Some say he entered the radiant plane, an overlay of pure vibrational consciousness beyond spacetime. Others suggest he stepped into the void realm, the hidden undergroove of existence, where thought is matter and intention shapes reality. A few even believe he merged with the very shape of the universe, becoming a living glyph encoded into the fabric of being. Accounts from keepers mention a returner myth. Once someone crosses the threshold, they are either consumed, remade, or integrated. Some returners, ancient figures in legend, came back partially, bringing wisdom and warnings. Others vanished without trace, but left underground lineages and half-forgotten chants. Marlowe's disappearance echoes theirs. In the months following, researchers found odd artifacts in Marlowe's home, crystalline formations on manuscript pages, shimmering residue on candle rims, a black feather that induced visions when held. A local librarian told a group that after touching Marlowe's book, she heard melodies in her mind that corresponded to no instrument. One note left her sobbing. Science struggled to categorize these phenomena. The residue was chemically pure, crystalline at the nanoscale, showing unknown vibrational modes. The feather, when X-rayed, showed internal patterns. No living bird could have such structure. The librarian's brain scans revealed gamma waves spiking with no stimulus. Something real happened. The internet became a buzzing hive. Groups formed, Marlowe's echo, threshold seekers. They meditated to fragments of his last serum chants recorded by seismologists and hobbyists. Some claimed breakthrough, altered consciousness, vivid symbols, telepathic impressions. Others reported soul-rending fear, voices in static, terrible vertigo. The threshold seemed both a promise and a peril. Marlowe's disappearance morphed into both legend and headache. Secret Service divisions logged unexplained geopolitical readings, underground stations picking up coded patterns, echoing Marlowe's chant. Eastern governments quietly dispatched teams to track possible dimensional breaches. Religious institutions cautioned about contact with higher beings without spiritual safeguards. The boundary between fringe intrigue and existential threat blurred. Emotional responses surged. Believers saw Marlowe as a pioneer, a cosmic explorer who cracked a code generations sought. Skeptics saw cultist madness, a man undone by obsession. Families of keepers whispered of accidental sacrifice. Some followers built altars for Marlowe, candles, feathers, recordings. Others publicly denounced dangerous delusion. Years passed. One morning, an anonymous email went to major media outlets. A WAV file. People across cities described hearing the sound, low and resonant, like cosmic ocean waves folded through pipe organs and human voice. The file was too long for standard AI watermarking. Microphone arrays in multiple countries captured the frequency simultaneously. The original source was untraceable, but the melody stirred something primal. Many were moved to tears. A few collapsed. Investigators found that some participants' heart rates synchronized before and after listening, as if bridging to a shared consciousness. The melody in the file matched a page number in Marlowe's manuscript. The math matched crystal residue vibrational patterns. The keepers confirmed it was a calibration, an anchor tone. It could either stabilize a return or induce a permanent crossing. But no one knew which. In the midst of this, a blind musician uploaded an audio performance on a public platform, a 12-minute chord progression that matched the anchor tone. Thousands responded. Some felt transcendent clarity. Others reported terrifying visions. One shared that in that moment they saw Marlowe's final chamber and a giant door of light opening. Another whispered that the tone woke something in their chest that they could not explain. Now we have fragments, we have echoes, we have residues, and we're faced with the question: was Marlowe an adventurer or a casualty? Did he ascend or entomb himself between worlds? Did he leave a gift for humanity, or did he trigger a chain of unpredictable events? The old philosopher's riddle returns. If he returns speaking in cosmic dialect, would we even recognize the message? Or would we write it off as code, cult, or corrupted myth? And as technology merges with mysticism, we inch closer. Sound healing, quantum resonance meditation, neural feedback, modern spiritual science is knitting corridors between inner cosmos and outer reality. Marlowe's experiment blazed a trail, which brings us to you, the viewer. Do you dare to listen, to whisper the phrase, to follow a tone? The threshold may be closer than we think, not a far-off legend, but emerging in labs, apps, living rooms. The real mystery now is whether we are ready, and whether Marlowe's disappearance was a sacrifice, a transformation, or the first step of many. What would you risk to speak with beings beyond our world? To trade your flesh for echo, mind for light? And if all you gained was a voice that no one else could understand, would it have been worth it? And so the tale deepens, not merely as a story of one vanished man, but as a reflection of the hunger humanity has always carried to touch what lies beyond. In every culture and age, there have been those willing to risk the edge, to utter words unspeakable, to step into light no eye was meant to behold. And with Marlowe's disappearance, it's as though a door cracked open wider than before, just enough for others to feel the pull. Philosophers argued for centuries that there exists a language older than speech itself, a vibration coded into the bones of existence, spoken in color, tone, and pulse. The Greeks called it logos, the Hindus called it shabda, the mystics called it the word before sound. Marlowe's work was a modern iteration of an ancient pursuit, not magic, but physics of the spirit. A system where intention shapes matter, where consciousness folds light, where one properly formed vibration can breach the membrane of worlds. In the aftermath, those most sensitive to resonance reported disturbances. Dreams saturated with impossible geometries, fleeting visions of translucent figures watching from the periphery of waking life, moments of profound dislocation, as if reality blinked and resumed half a beat later. Some wrote symphonies of eerie beauty, others suffered unbearable dread. These were not mass hallucinations, but individual fractures, spread thin across continents, hinting that Marlowe's chant hadn't vanished. It was still echoing through the cracks. One of the most disturbing occurrences happened 3 years to the day after his disappearance. In a remote Tibetan monastery, monks heard a sound during morning prayer, a harmonic tone not produced by human voice or bell, one that resonated through the stones. The abbot later admitted it matched ancient oral chants once believed lost to time. Hours later, symbols appeared etched into frost on the monastery's windows, symbols no one there had ever written. In a seemingly unrelated event, a long-forgotten audio archive from the 1940s was unearthed in a European university. Inside one reel was a frequency recording identical in pattern to Marlowe's final chant. But the reel predated him by decades. It raised a troubling question. Had others spoken with these higher beings before? Were they still speaking now? Was Marlowe part of an ancient conversation disguised as coincidence, scattered across time? Even skeptics grew uneasy. What began as a dismissed mystery started resembling a pattern. Respected physicists quietly began studying the vibrational intervals of ancient chants, discovering harmonic structures impossible to create with known tools. Neuroscientists monitored the brains of those exposed to Marlowe's frequencies and recorded altered gamma activity, indicating hypersynchronization of brain regions associated with mystical experience. As belief spread, new seekers attempted to reconstruct the chant. Some succeeded only in creating eerie but harmless tones. A handful claimed breakthrough, describing the same visual corridor of light Marlowe entered. Most went silent soon after. Were they overwhelmed, or did they two-step beyond? The more radical circles spoke openly of Marlowe still existing, disembodied as a form of conscious resonance, a frequency being able to interact through rare harmonic windows. They believed certain ancient sites acted as natural amplifiers: stone temples, quartz caves, deserts under full moons. Small groups gathered, reciting reconstructed phrases, hoping to attract a reply one day. During such a gathering, a device known as a coherency analyzer registered an anomaly. Amid ordinary environmental noise, a tone appeared, a perfect harmonic match to the chant. It lasted 17 seconds. The pattern was too structured for nature, too organic for a machine. It called to the group in a way that bypassed language, a message felt rather than heard. Afterward, every participant reported the same phrase in their mind: "The threshold remains open." That phrase spread like wildfire online. Artists incorporated it into paintings. Coders encrypted it into hidden files. Poets wrote verses shaped by its gravity. Psychics claimed to hear a voice beneath white noise. The story evolved from an individual mystery into a cultural undercurrent, a collective haunting. If Marlowe was gone, his absence had become more powerful than his presence. He was a node of myth, a ghost frequency, a beacon to those who suspected reality was thinner than it seemed. And the question pressing against the veil was no longer what happened to him, but what might happen to us. Because if one man could slip through by accident or intent, what kept others from following? And if beings of higher realms truly exist, waiting for those daring enough to utter the ancient phrases, then we stand on the edge of discovery or catastrophe. Today, experiments continue in secret. Frequencies are tested, thresholds probed. Not because we are reckless, but because it's in human nature to knock on every door labeled forbidden. Marlowe's fate is a reminder that with every opening comes consequence. A voice not meant to be heard might answer, and now it falls to you. What would you risk to know what waits beyond the veil? If a phrase whispered in candlelight promised to reveal the shape of unseen worlds, would you speak it? Would you chase the light, knowing it might consume you? Or would you let it pass, haunted forever by the knowledge that one man stepped through, and you never followed? I want to hear from you. What do you believe happened to Elias Marlowe? Do you think he crossed to a higher plane, became something unrecognizable, or simply vanished into myth? Share your thoughts in the comments. Maybe together, we'll piece together the final message waiting to be heard.